Welcome, everyone. Really, thank you for your patience. Sometimes some technical issues might face us at the last moment, so thank you for your patience and thank you for joining this webinar with Governance Dynamics. This is actually part of our monthly webinars. We've been doing this since January 2025. And this really reflects our commitment and belief that sustainable governance everywhere starts with continuous learning and open dialogue, discussion, reflection, some sharing ideas also. So whether you're a governance professional or a compliance officer or any executive leader in an organization, I think this is being here in this webinar is a true commitment to governance and continuous development and growth. So Governance Dynamics is a specialized training and consulting company providing really tailored solutions and advisory in GRC sphere and domain, but not also restricted to GRC. We do also internal audit, ESG, and forensic investigation, quality assurance. So it's a whole sphere of services around governance and internal audit. I invite you to visit our website and to get to know more about Governance Dynamics. We have a huge team, a big team of qualified international and local professionals who combine practical expertise with commitment to delivering quality real-world solutions. We are also authorized training partner with OSEG, PECB for ISO, and we provide NASBA certification for CPEs whenever someone is attending our training programs. And before we begin also, please make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn. It will be a great opportunity for us to connect with you and for you to keep on following our news, our publications, our next webinars. And we are also monitoring everyone that is connecting with us and attending the full webinar in order to provide you with special offers later on, inshallah. So Bilal, our operations manager, will be extending this through an email later on after the webinar during this week. We are honored also to welcome Mr. Walid Chinyara as the keynote speaker of our governance webinar, The Joy and Pain of Governance and the Sustainability of Family-Controlled Businesses. This is the topic of our webinar today. So it's also something that we did in the Beirut Chambers of Commerce a few weeks ago. It was a very exciting session with lots of businesses, local businesses in Lebanon. So this was an opportunity also to extend this expertise and knowledge to all our audience and partners through this webinar. With over 4 decades of experience, Mr. Chinyara is a distinguished international finance lawyer and a leading authority in family business governance. He is renowned for his innovative 7 steps methodology, a transformative approach to succession planning and conflict resolution detailed in his acclaimed book, Dynastic Planning. His extensive work with prominent families across the Middle East, Europe, North America has solidified his reputation as a trusted advisor in navigating complex generational transitions. In this webinar, Mr. Chinyara will provide us with all the details and dynamics that are required in a family governance, exploring the emotional and structural challenges that will impact the sustainability and longevity of the family enterprise. Whether you are a founder, a next generation leader, or a governance professional, this event promises to provide you with actionable, real life strategies for sustaining family businesses and legacies. So without overdue, I will leave the floor for Mr. Chinyara to take us through his approach and methodology. Over to you, Mr. Walid.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mohammed, for this kind introduction. I will try to cover this afternoon 5 points. The first point is the definition of what I would call family-controlled businesses, the partnership among family members, what we commonly call sustainability of family businesses. The fourth point is governance. And the fifth point is the conversation that goes around and binds family members together. And then we will touch on the title that we discussed earlier today, which is Joy and Pain of Governance and within a family business, and perhaps leave you with a couple of takeaways, and then we'll open the floor for a Q&A. So I'll try to be brief so that we could have as much time as possible to interact, which will probably enrich the conversation. So if you allow me, I will first start with what I believe is the definition of a family-controlled businesses. And the reason why we chose family-controlled as opposed to just family businesses or family-owned businesses is that we would like to include as well those family businesses that are partially listed on the stock market and that also are still controlled by a family as such. So when a family decides to list its business on the stock market and keeps a controlling share, lists 20% or 30% and keeps a controlling share, then we include this also in our conversation because the market buys into a business, but it also buys into a brand name. It buys into the family that is behind the business and that basically guarantees quality or guarantees excellence and guarantees efficiency and so on and so forth. So let me start with two common things, what I'd like to call the myth and the reality when we talk about family businesses. It is true that family businesses are definitely the backbone of the economy. It is also true that family businesses constitute the large portion of the private sector, because in our part of the world, very few companies are listed on the stock market. So the private sector is comprised of family businesses. And the third element and the third truth is actually family businesses are the largest or employers in this part of the world. And as you may know, and as those of you who have recently attended the investment conference that took place in Kuwait about 2-3 months ago, this part of the world needs to create something like 250 million jobs over the next 30 years. Quite a big challenge. And the onus rests with the private sector to a great extent, and also rests with government to kind of provide the infrastructure needed for those family businesses to thrive. This is in terms of the truth, basically, of who family businesses are. But there are also falsities that you read about, that you hear about. The first one is clogs to clogs in 3 generations. I do not believe that this concept is true when we are talking about family businesses, although it is in all the literature. One, I believe this is, I believe that every generation is a first generation. And two, I also believe that this could be an insult to our next generation. That means at the level, at the third level, third generation, those businesses are doomed. So why are we going through succession planning? Why are we thriving? Why are we continuing the business if, in any case, the third generation is going to destroy it and put it in the bin? I certainly don't believe in this. Having worked with families and businesses, having worked with next generation family members, I strongly deny this axiom that we hear about and read about. The second element that we need to keep in mind, and we read about very often in the newspapers these days, is that about $1 trillion will pass to the next generation over the next 10 years. I truly do not believe that $1 trillion will pass. All I know is that by the law of nature, founders and patriarchs are going to pass away, are going to cede their place to the next generation, are going to pass the baton, and there is a next generation that is ready and able to take over. And the third myth is that what is good for the L'Oréal family must be good for our family. We need to know that every family is different than the other, and every family is special in its own way. And when we work with one family, we are working with one family. Every family has a history. Every family has a value systems. Every family has its own life cycle. And every business and every wealth has its origin and it's also its life cycle. And we need to work with it and focus on its needs as opposed to generalities as such. There are no cookie cutter solutions. There are no systems that apply across the board. Every family needs to be addressed in its own way. The second thing that is important in our discussion about family-controlled businesses is what I like to call the after-after. As you will know, we are living in a part of the world today where challenges abound, whether it is at the level of technology, and we hear a lot of noise about AI. We hear a lot of things, and we live a lot of things regarding the geopolitics that are taking place in our region. And the third element, which is the societal changes that are taking place. We are certainly at a moment where all these elements and all these changes are taking place at the same time, in addition to a wealth transfer. Not necessarily $1 trillion, but definitely a wealth transfer where a next generation is taking over from the previous one. So this is in terms of what I would like to call the introduction so that we frame up our conversation and then we zero in on what is important. Every family business as such is a partnership between two and more individuals who decided to pool their resources together because they believe that being together is stronger than being on their own. And they have decided to build something extraordinary together and thrive and become number one and become better than their neighbor. This is in terms of what I believe a family business is, a partnership between individuals where we put the people at the center. The money is an important element, but what is for me more important is the people behind the money. And the way I look at family businesses as such, I look at it from a holistic point of view. If we like to decorticate a family business, I would classify it and put it in three baskets, if you will. Basket number one will be the business, what I like to call the cash cow, the source of the family wealth, the source of the well-being of the family. But equally as important is the people behind the money, the founder, the family, the children, the wife, the spouse, the children, the grandchildren, and so on. The family tree that is behind the family, behind the business, and thrives because of the business. But equally as important, and you all heard about the concepts of family offices and what have you, equally as important is the third basket, the stuff we buy with the money we make and the money we generate from the business. And the reason why I look at it this way is that each one of these elements, the family, the business, and the private assets, may be a source of conflict within this ecosystem. And every family that would like to be part of the new world that is shaping up around us needs to look at itself in the mirror. It needs to go through a certain transformation phase. It needs to evolve. And every transformation exercise starts with what I like to call governance. It is important to figure out who we are. It is important to figure out where we come from. It is important to figure out what we want to do together, if we want to stay together, if yes, how, and if we do not want to stay together, then how to exit and how to make our own journey and away from the others without disrupting the ecosystem as such. And this takes me to the third point that we referred to a bit earlier, which is the sustainability. The sustainability of a family business is basically all the elements that will allow these family businesses to survive. Family business to survive from generation 1, pass on to generation 2, to generation 3, and so on and so forth. You are going to tell me that companies, businesses have their own life. It is not necessarily that these businesses will pass from one to the other. True. No two individuals are the same. Human beings are not clones. The dream of a founder may not necessarily be the dream of the son or the daughter. and that the son or the daughter may have their own dreams, but nevertheless, there is something that the founder has built. And the question will be, do we want it? Do we want to keep it? Do we want to dispose of it? Do we like it? Are we going to take it over, nurture it, and structure it and take it to the next level so it grows and becomes something of value that in turn we are going to pass on to our own next generation? This is a big question mark. It's easier said, of course, than done. But because it all revolves around the human beings and the relationship within a partnership as such, then we need to look deeply into what makes a partnership successful. I spent a great deal of time working with a large number of family businesses, a large number of patriarchs and founders, a large number of successors and next gen. And I spent some time working on the reasons why the succession of a family business, why some families are successful in transferring their businesses to the next generation and why others fail. And looking at the success stories, I realized that the families who really succeed in achieving this exercise and this goal are those who are able to figure out what makes human beings tick. A partnership is a relationship between people. It is very important for a partnership. In order to succeed, we need to start working on the individuals. Every relationship between two individuals includes three parties: me, you, and we. And for a partnership to succeed, the we has to take precedence over the me. So we need to put the we at the forefront. We need to solidify the we. We need to protect the we. And I need and you need to step aside and give priority to this we, which is the group, which is the partnership as such. The second element that is equally as important is the ability to create a certain equilibrium between what I'd like to call, first of all, the love, the trust between individuals, and the respect between them. What I mean by love is basically the passion for the business, the fact that I put the business or the interests of the business before my own interests. Love oneself. I have to be comfortable and at ease with myself, so I am able to have a healthy relationship with my partners. The second element that we refer to is the trust. Love, trust, and respect. The trust is measured by deeds, the actions, the acts that I perform, and is also measured by the behavior and what I say and what I'm expected to say. And as you well know, trust is an element that is intangible. It takes a great deal of time to build and materialize, and it takes a fraction of a second to disappear. And the third element, of course, is respect. If I say white and my partner says black, it does not mean that I like my partner or I don't like my partner. It means that I have an opinion that could be different than my partner's. And this is where we need to establish a kind of trust relationship with one another and eventually have a conversation between us. And this brings in the element of what I like to call conversation, communication and conversation among the parties in a transparent, healthy manner so that things can move forward in the interest of everyone. Now, what makes a family business sustainable? What makes a family business endure over decades and survive despite the challenges that it may face? We need to factor in that when the next gen takes over from the previous generation, it is not that they are only inheriting shares in a business. They have the responsibility, the weight of this business on their shoulders. They have the responsibility to take it to the next level. They have the responsibility of the employees working there. And these individuals are not simple numbers. These are families that are that feed from this business. These are the virtual partners of the owners of the business who can help the owners succeed or fail. We need to take them into consideration. This is why I like to highlight the difference between inheriting shares, inheriting just money, but also the responsibility to take over this business and take it to the next level. We have a responsibility, a moral responsibility. We have a responsibility towards the community. We have a responsibility towards the stakeholders who have an interest in the success of this business with us. And of course, sustainability starts with the element of giving and taking. The founders need to have, need to want to give the business to the next generation. But in order for them to give the business away, they need to be comfortable that those who are going to receive it have the will and they have the capabilities to take over. And on the other side, the side of the recipients also need to show that they want to take over the business, and they need to show that they love this business as much as the founders did, and that they are capable to take it over and take it to the next level. So for all this to happen, and if you noticed, I mean, I've been talking about intangible elements. I have not talked about dollars and cents. I did not talk about balance sheets. I did not talk about mergers and acquisitions. I talked about the relationship between human beings. And the only way for a relationship to succeed, and for the only way for a relationship to be to consolidate, is to learn how to talk to one another, the art of the conversation. We are going to come back to this element because it will be the one that is going to accompany us throughout. And how does conversation come into place? Come into play? Conversation is the essence of what I like to call governance. Very often, governance is confused. The definition of governance is confused with the consequence of governance, the objective, and what is going to produce for us. Governance is, in essence, the conversation that is going to take place between the parties. And this conversation will be papered in a shareholders agreement, in a family constitution, in a family ownership manual, call it whatever you want to call it. But it is basically, all these documents are nothing but the minutes of meetings of those conversations that took place between the partners. What is the objective of a governance? The objective of governance, of course, is to create institutions and to protect these institutions, to protect the institutions with rules that the partners put in place. When I talked earlier about the way I look at family businesses, the three components, the three baskets, the business as such, the people behind the business, the family, and the private assets, I'm referring basically to the governance that needs to apply to each one of these baskets: family governance, corporate governance, financial governance. The family governance is nothing but the relationship among the family members, those people behind the money, and the relationship with money. Because each one of us, we're human beings. We're not born clones. Even if we are brothers and sisters, each one of us have their own personality. Each one of us has their own wants, their own needs, their own dreams, and our relationship with money is different than our brother, our sister, our father, our mother. This is one element, the relationship among the family members and the relationship with money and the source of money. When it comes to corporate governance, it's the relationship between the shareholders of the business, the investors, those who have a financial stake in the business, their relationship with management, and their relationship with the stakeholders of that business. And when you are talking about private assets, and this is another world by itself, the commonly referred to as the family office, is the relationship between those beneficial owners, basically family members and others, who have an interest in the management of those assets, and the relationship with those managers of the assets and their trusted advisors. So as you see, each one of these baskets has a different definition by itself, has a different life cycle by itself, and the dynamics that make this basket survive is different one from the other. So the purpose of governance is to define the roles of each party. The role of governance is to introduce responsibility and accountability. As the role of governance is to introduce transparency, to introduce checks and balances. It is there to give a voice to the people sitting around the table. It is there to protect the minority from the majority, but also the majority from the minority. And this is in a nutshell what governance is supposed to be offering. Roles and defining those roles. When we are talking about corporate governance, many of you will tell me, but the law says, yes, companies are managed by or regulated, if you will, by a company's law, by a corporate law of some sort. But if you notice, the corporate law does not go into the details. And allow me to give you a very simple example. In many of the commercial codes, we see that a board of directors of a joint stock company should be comprised of a minimum of, for example, 3 individuals and a maximum of 12. And some codes, some countries have a maximum, others don't. In Saudi Arabia, it's a minimum of 3, but there is no maximum. You can put 5 people, you can appoint 6 people, you can appoint 12 people, whatever you believe is important for your business to move forward. This is where I say the law provides us with a framework, but does not go into the details. A shareholders assembly, a board of directors, an executive committee, a family council, a next generation committee, an audit committee are all institutions. There are certain parameters, but then it is up to us, up to the parties around the table to define the role of these institutions and to protect these institutions with certain rules. And this is how we kind of introduce certain discipline in the relationship between the parties and the way they operate and the way they function together. This is, in terms, grosso modo, what I would like to highlight with respect to governance. And of course, I welcome your feedback and your questions in a few minutes from now. So if we turn to the essence of governance, which is basically the conversation itself. Governance, the conversation, is supposed to take us deeper into the elements that define what a relationship is all about. We need to understand the facts. We need to understand who the people around the table are. How can I enter into a partnership if I don't know who my partner is? The problem that we have in family businesses is that the partners are family members. They know one another since basically they are born. They know the faults, they know the pluses, they know the minuses of each one of them. And this is an element that is a bit distorting, because if I know that my brother is a turbulent individual, then perhaps this will stay with me. And if my brother is my partner in the business, perhaps he may take decisions that do not coincide with the way I think and the way I would like things to happen. And this is where it is important to figure out who my partners around the table are. We need to have a conversation so that we reach a certain alignment. What are we going to do together? First of all, are we going to stay together? And second, what are we going to do together? The facts, who the people are, what the business that we are inheriting or we are taking over is all about. What is it that we want to do together? And once we agree that we are aligned and we know what is our final objective, how are we going to achieve this final objective? It is important to have a common project among us. Remember when I mentioned that a family business is a partnership where 2 or more individuals put their resources together to do something together? This is the doing something together means. What is it that we are going to do together? If we inherit from father or grandfather a manufacturing plant to bottle water, is this something that we as grandchildren or next generation, is it something that we want to do? Is it something that appeals to us? Because as you well know, if you are taking over something from somebody else, you take it over either during their lifetime, so they pass it on, they nurture you, they coach you, they help you understand what the business is all about, or you take it upon inheritance. Upon inheritance, you have the right to take or not to take. If you take, then you can take it and dispose of it, sell it, or throw it in the bin if you want. But you can also take it and eventually embrace it, and nurture it and take it to the next level. So this is very important when we sit around the table among family members to figure out what is our finite objective, where do we want to go together, and how we are going to achieve it. Very often, I have this comment from families. I mean, I just worked with a family recently where I was told by one of the family members, you gave us the opportunity to discuss things that we considered taboo for the longest time. And this is what basically the conversation does. It helps the family members who are sitting around the table to start opening up, to feel comfortable with one another, and eventually address the issues that normally they do not address. It is very difficult for a father to speak to a son. It's very difficult for a brother to work with a sister and vice versa. And then, nothing falls from the sky. We are not forced to do things. We have the option to do things. So if we exercise this option to do something, then we need to have the freedom to maneuver. We need to have the freedom to succeed. Otherwise, if we don't embrace, we don't love, we are not interested, we don't trust the people around the table, necessarily this business is going to fail. And then we are going to give those doomsayers, those who say clogs to clogs in 3 generations, the precedence over what I was saying a bit earlier. I dispute this axiom. This axiom is not real. It is not true. What I like to say is that each generation is a first generation. Each one of us has the ability to express themselves. Each one of us has the ability to take over, and each one of us has the ability to excel and survive and actually thrive and reach the moon. It is very important for the next generation today to start thinking about what is coming next. When I mentioned earlier in our conversation about the after, we need to be 2-3 steps ahead of our competitor, 2-3 steps ahead of our neighbor, so that we can succeed. If we take, I mean, when I have conversations with family members or the next gen, I sometimes tell them each one of us needs to have their Elon Musk moment. We need to be ahead of others, otherwise we cannot excel. Family businesses in our part of the world have this obligation today if they want to survive, if they want to overcome the challenges, the tsunami that is hitting our part of the world at all levels. They need to rise above the day-to-day and start thinking of the after, the day after tomorrow, not necessarily tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow, because if they don't do this, others are already doing it on their behalf. So when we talk about joy and pain of governance, everything that I've been saying so far, governance is a paradox at the end of the day. It is both a blessing and a burden. It is where legacy meets structures. It is where love is asked to follow certain rules. It becomes the quiet architect that holds generations together. When I talk about joy, the joy lies in the ability to carry dreams across time. It allows families to grow beyond personalities. This is where the we takes form and takes precedence over the me, the interest of the individual sitting around the table. It creates the space where the next generation are moving from what I call the heirs to what I like to call stewards of the tomorrow. The pain is actually we need to give a space. We need to give up some of our freedoms. Governance is put shackles. تضع قيود بالعربي. Asks for clarity. It asks for transparency, where comfort has always been the rule. It defines roles for individuals, and it also defines limitations of these roles. It forces decisions that may exclude certain people and may even offend certain people. It exposes old wounds. It's like the family member was telling me, you allowed us to talk about taboos. It opens wounds sometimes, and it forces families to confront what they would have rather left untouched. And very often after these conversations that we have, a lot of pain comes out of it. But at the end of the day, I can assure you that once this pain disappears, joy comes back, because it is the joy of sitting together around the table, the joy of the unison, the joy of the unity, the joy of a family united together to do something together. And there is nothing more pleasant for a founder, for a parent, to see their children sitting together around the table, discussing perhaps heated debates. It doesn't matter. It is important. It is healthy. Having fights, it's also healthy. But at the end of the day, putting their hands together and building something together. So this being said, perhaps I can leave you with 2 or 3 takeaways. The first one is the importance of the relationship between seniors and juniors. The seniors need to understand that there is an expiration date, that at one point they need to pass on the baton to the next generation. None of us, no matter how big or how rich or how important we are, will live forever. Even pharaohs died. Napoleon Bonaparte passed away. For me, seniors need to understand the importance of the legacy that they are passing on. Seniors are custodians of their businesses. None of the seniors can take their businesses with them to the next life. They need to pass on the baton to the juniors. The juniors need to understand that they are more than heirs of assets, heirs of money, heirs of shares in a business. They are stewards of tomorrow. They have this great responsibility over their shoulders. The message that I would like to give the next generation is never despair and never bet against your family. Your family should always remain at the center. You need to respect your seniors. You need to respect what the elders have done. They may have done it differently than you may want to do it, but they did it with the tools they had at the time when they started those businesses. Running a business 50 years ago was different than running a business today. The tools that we have at our disposal today have nothing to do with the tools that existed then. And 50 years ago, they had tools that did not exist 100 years before. So each generation deals with what it has, does its best, and tries to build something to pass on to the next generation. And my last message is try to honor the past, but always be at least 2 steps ahead. Tradition is not the enemy of innovation. Innovation is doing things better, but then tradition is what keeps us together. It is the roots of our values. It is the glue that keeps us together, and it is the only element that will allow us to see the light, the only elements that will allow us to thrive and succeed over decades to come. And believe me, the challenges that are coming ahead are nothing that we have ever thought about, but we can overcome them by staying together. The strength of a family resides in the bond and the strength of the bond among the family members. So do away with differences, do away with differences of opinion, do away with feuds, do away with conflicts, and try to stick together, because together you will survive and nothing else will help you. I can promise you that your neighbor doesn't like you. Your neighbor wants your place. Your competitor wants to take over from you. So if you are not strong, if you are not united, then the neighbor will win. Thank you. I believe I exhausted my time, and I would very much like it if we could have an interactive session, and for you to react to some of the things that I've just said, so that we could have an exciting conversation. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Walid. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed your insightful, speech about this topic, and all the practical examples and takeaways that we can learn from. It was really exciting and insightful. But I know that we have lots of questions coming our way, but I will start by one question that maybe touches on the most difficult part of the process. So whenever we are looking at this disruptive world and environment that we are living in as on technological level, geopolitical level, economical level, but also we have internally within the family this generational clash between the tradition and the innovation, the old way and the new way of doing things. You know, all these this tension that we might face within this transition. What are the mechanisms that we need to put in place? What kind of, you know, we talked about conversation, but how are we going to structure this conversation or this process in order to end up with a successful framework and acceptable framework for everyone?
Well, thank you for your question. The question goes deep into the approach to conversation and the approach to governance as such. I'm often told about experiences that families have working with advisors in this field. The reason why many are not able to fulfill the needs of certain families is that they look at governance as a commodity as opposed to a covenant. Governance is not systems and processes. Governance is about conversation again. And your question is, how do we go about this conversation? It is very easy to, and if you recall when I said in my presentation, what works for L'Oréal does not necessarily work for every family, because every family is different than the other. So this is where, in all humility, I refer to the 7 steps that I introduced you introduced actually in the bio, and I wrote a book about this. The art of the conversation is not an easy thing, and as I mentioned, also parents have difficulty speaking with children. Children difficulty speaking with their parents is not a natural thing. We are individualistic. We have our own opinions. As you pointed out, we have a traditional way of doing things. We have seniors, we have juniors. Somebody born in 1920 has difficulty having a conversation with somebody born in 1999. The worlds are totally different. The way to approach things is totally different. And this is where often when families have difficulty addressing those needs, they call on a person like myself to help facilitate a conversation. The 7 steps, and I will go through this very quickly so that I leave room for more questions. The step number 1 is what I talked about, which is giving and taking. It's very important to know that when I have something and I cherish, and remember, when somebody has set up a business, they usually have set up a business before they even got married or they even have had children. This is in most cases. So they basically cherish this baby. It is their first baby. They cherish it. They work day and night and to ensure the success of this business as such. And if they became successful after 10, 15, 20, 30 years, they have difficulty forgetting the first steps and the first days of the inception of that business. So it's very hard for them to give it up. And this is where sometimes we have difficult conversations between seniors and juniors being impatient and complaining that the seniors do not let go and do not basically step aside for the juniors to come in. But then again, it's a matter of emotions. We are human beings. We are a bundle of emotions. We have a brain, yes, but we also have a heart. And the arm wrestling that takes place between the brain and the heart is something that affects relationships between human beings. So for me, a senior who have built something with my own hands and cherish it and love it to pass it on, I need to know that the person across from me loves it as much, even more, and is going to cherish it after me. And these are very sensitive elements. You are talking about love, about life and death. You are talking about my expiration date. You are talking about the fact that I have become yesterday and that eventually there is a new generation taking over. And this is where the art of the conversation comes in. This is where the chemistry takes place. In French, they say, c'est là où la mayonnaise prend. It has to happen. the chemistry has to happen, something magical has to happen in the conversation where these two parties, there is a meeting of the minds between these two parties. So this is where a great deal of effort needs to take place. Yes, we are going to fight. It's not easy to listen. It is not easy to be told the truth. It is not easy to tell the truth, but there is an art in telling the truth, and there is an art to listen and an art to ease the conversation between people. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think I touched on certain elements of the question. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. I think we will always be in need to honor the tradition and the effort that the first generation put, but also to give room for the new generation to contribute with their new ideas and new ways of doing things. And this is the way where facilitation and the mediation can take place in order to make it a successful process. So I will leave.
And this is life, and this is life as such. I mean, there is the rejuvenation of life. I mean, the seniors need to accept that there is a new element, that we need to trust this new element. We gave our children education, and we need to trust they are capable, and they can take over, and they can do better than us. And this is the law of nature, actually. I mean, we need to respect this, and we need to accept it and embrace it.
Sometimes it's just like whenever you are giving the car for your kid in order to drive it, and and you trust that he will abide by the rules, and he will be safe, and etc. Yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, I will open the floor for our attendees. So if you have any questions, you're most welcome.
If you have any questions, please raise your hand. You can also write it in the chat box or through the QA section.
Do you have questions in the QA, Bilal?
No. So far, no questions. Mr. Naji is raising his hand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Bilal. Thank you, Mr. Walid. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Very insightful presentation. Thank you, Mr. Walid. First time that I, attend one of your sessions, so I was really excited, and just have few one comment and a question, if you allow me.
Please.
Now, usually, I mean, if we go back to history, major improvement usually happen, when you're talking about the improvements in governance in general, usually they follow major failures, corporate failures. This is where we know the gaps that we were exposed to in oversight, and the broader reform happens usually afterwards. Now, in terms of family-controlled businesses or family businesses in general, I like the definition that you gave at the beginning, that it includes the family-controlled businesses, even if they are a public company. My question is for family businesses that make up maybe a big percentage of the businesses in the Gulf, by the way, which are not publicly listed, but they're family businesses, and they are, maybe a big percentage of the economy. Question is, what about the family businesses that are not required by regulation or by any law to have a corporate governance, a governance in general, or to follow a code of governance? How could you make sure that these businesses embrace and implement this, this new governance methodology or framework, and not wait for a major catastrophe to happen in one of the family businesses? Is it something that you have, some thoughts about? That's the question.
I'm going to try to answer your question. I mean, in every mandate that I was entrusted with, there was always an element of conflict, not necessarily feud, but perhaps of disagreements within family members, which prompted them to ask for help or seek the help of a third party, an outsider from the family. No one is required to introduce any rules into the way they do business, in the sense that if you are the master of your own game, if you are Julius Caesar at the top of your business and you run your business on your own, then you are free to do whatever you want. What I like to say very often is that I am the investor. This is my money. I am the most qualified individual to manage my money, and I do it my own way. I'm successful in my own right, and I'm content and I'm happy. So my rules are my rules. I don't need to introduce any rules coming from outside, and nobody can force me to introduce any rules. Fair enough? This is the first axiom. The second axiom that comes and attaches itself to this is that what happens after me? Me, Julius Caesar, I am at the helm of this. I have a choice. During my lifetime, I take it, I sell it, I dispose of it, I spend it, I put it, flush it down the toilet. I can do anything I want with it. But the moment I decide I would like whatever I built to pass on to a next generation or to another group of individuals, I am moving from the management of one individual to the management of two or more individuals. And once I cross this bridge and I have more than one individual at the helm of the business, because in Arabic we say al-idara la tuwarrath, al-amwal tuwarrath, wal-idara la tuwarrath. So if I pass on the management to more than one individual, then I have two individuals with two opinions. Their opinions may coincide, their opinions may differ from time to time. So how do I manage this relationship? And this is where governance needs to come in. This is where new rules need to come in. This is where the conversation between these two individuals need to come in so that they agree among themselves who is number one, who is number two, how we make decisions together, how do we invest in the business, how do we distribute profits, if any, how do we take the burden of losses, if any, and if we fight, what's going to happen. So sometimes no one can impose rules on you and you're not forced to take on rules, but the nature will force rules on you if you are moving from the rule of one to a rule of more than one. Did I touch on the question? Did I answer your question?
Yes, mostly, but I mean, I still have the element of these principles, the principles of corporate governance, and I don't know if you're familiar, because COSO has issued a new it's like what do you call it, exposure draft of a new governance framework that could apply to families as well, because I mean it has a very competitive, when you have a governance installed or implemented, it gives you a competitive advantage, even if you are a family. But the question is, how would you make sure that the governance is properly applied? Like, it could be a facet, that you see, oh, we are applying governance and we have governance, whatever. But in reality, it could be something like, greenwashing. Like if they say we have governance, but in essence, they're just, basically pretending to have governance and not applying the real principles of governance. So that's my question. Yeah.
Well, this is what I touched on when I answered Mr. Mohammed a bit earlier, in the sense that the confusion between governance as a commodity and governance as a covenant.
Yeah.
For governance to apply and for governance to succeed, you need leadership. You need a commander-in-chief. You need somebody who takes leadership and leads the herd and leads the group forward. Somebody who's wise enough to keep everybody together, and somebody who is wise enough to understand that there are dynamics and to manage these dynamics. When I talk about governance as commodity, it's exactly what you are mentioning. Very often, we need to, again, we need, in a family business, we need to distinguish between governance of the business itself, the corporate governance, and the business that applies to the governance that applies to the family, the relationship of the family members among themselves. These are two different worlds that connect together, but they are different. You cannot you cannot download from internet the corporate governance rules that apply to IBM or to a publicly traded company and apply them to your own company. You need to understand where these rules come from. You need to adapt these rules to apply to your own business because your business has its own needs. And this is where I say it's not a commodity. You cannot just cut and paste. It is a covenant, it is a conversation, it is an agreement between parties, it is an understanding between parties, and it is a code of honor between parties.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wali.
Thank you.
I think we have a question in the same line of site or direction from Kartnik. Are there any governance models specifically suited for multi-generational family businesses?
This is what the message that I would like to pass on.
Mr. Walid, I think
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Kartik also had his hand up. So, Mr. Kartik, if you want to add also after Mr. Walid answers you, I'm happy to open the mic for you. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Very often I hear people talking about best practices. I beg to differ from the common literature. I do not believe that there is something called best practice when it comes to family businesses. It goes back to my comment earlier on that what applies to L'Oréal does not necessarily apply to your family business. Every family business is different. Every family history is different. Every family system values is different. Every family dynamics is different. And then we need to take all these elements into account. When you work with a family, you just work with this family. When you work with another family, you just work with that other family. No two families look alike. Not two families are the same. Yes, you're going to tell me there are general principles. Yes. The forums where they have a conversation, we can call them family councils, we can call them family boards, we can call them family majlis, we can call them anything you want. Yes, forums are similar in terms of themes, but not in terms of implementation. And this is where we can perhaps get inspired from the successes of others, but then we have to devise, we have to tailor-make the rules to apply to us and to our own family and to our own value systems. It's very important to understand who we are. It's very important to understand where we come from. It is very important to understand where the source of wealth comes from. And it's very important to understand who are the people sitting around the table. And it's also equally as important to understand what I, as an individual sitting at the table with others, want. Because nobody can impose on me my dreams, my vision, and my wants. So, and this is where I believe the terminology best practice does not apply.
Fails, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Kartik had a follow-up question.
Okay, we move to Mr. Marwan Abdelhaq.
Mr. Marwan, you can open your mic. Mr. Marwan, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, no, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Mr. Wali.
Thank you.
It was a very enlightening presentation. My question can be a little bit different, okay? I mean, you know, in our societies in the Middle East, like from your experience, you might have encountered this case where, you know, there is the psychological or the emotional part where, you know, like the next generation might not be interested in the business itself. And you have always this type of, you know, of emotional connection from coming from the previous generation. Like this is the business, I built it for you, why you don't want to continue it? Okay, so how do you believe, okay, that this can be settled down in a way that can satisfy all parties, especially that, you know, like as you said, like once a business is inherited, you know, business wise, on the paper wise, you can do whatever you want. Okay, it's that you inherited, you have to take a decision. But if the decision was taken ahead, okay, from the next generation, like we are not very interested in this business, and even though that sometimes it's a money-making business. So how do we deal with the emotional effect, okay, between generations?
Well, thank you very much for your question. It is a brilliant question. It is a timely question. This afternoon, earlier this afternoon, before our webinar now, I had a conversation with a patriarch who basically came to me and said, my daughter just told me that she is no longer interested to take over my business. And I have accepted her decision. And now I need to start thinking about the way to unfold my business and dispose of it. And then after that, we are going to have a windfall of cash, and I don't know what to do with it. This is an individual who is in his 70s. This is an individual who kind of had a conversation at the family level and came to terms with the fact that his lifelong work was his. That was his dream. That was not his daughter's dream. That is not the dream of his other children. And that together they reached the conclusion that if you are not going to make something exciting out of it, you're not going to take it over, nurture it, and grow it, we might as well sell it, give it to somebody else who may care about it, and us, we take the money and then we do something that we want to do together. So how to manage this emotional interaction? I can say that this example that I just gave, the gentleman was wise enough to absorb, to digest the fact that his children were not interested in his own business. But then in some cases, you have this difficult conversation taking place between seniors and juniors, especially when seniors tell juniors, I built this business for you. Allow me to be blunt, allow me to be abrupt, allow me to be crude, but this is the biggest lie on this planet. I did not build my business for my sons and my children. I built the business for myself. I built the business because I believed and had a dream, and because I wanted to put a roof on my head. I wanted to feed my family. I wanted to send my children to school. I want to clothe them and feed them and give them all the luxuries in life. So I worked and I fulfilled my own dream. It does not mean that my dream is that of my children. And this is a conversation, difficult conversation, that I often have with seniors who are unable to let go, but then eventually with wisdom, with time, with patience, they kind of let go, they kind of accept the facts of life, and then things move on. Yes, of course, you may have the cases where people do not want to let go, people who do not want to understand that what they have done is of no interest, and that if they are it's going to be taken over by people who don't care about it, it's going to disappear and be dismantled. We have to work around this. We have no choice. Again, we go back to the element of conversation. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I think that here comes also the fact of responsibility towards the people who are working in this business, because you know if no one is interested in it, giving it to someone that he will continue in nurturing it and developing it is part of the responsibility toward the staff, the employee, and the families that are benefiting from this business.
Well, we go back to the concept of that I just mentioned in the takeaways. Seniors are custodians. Unfortunately, I often tell family members, this business does no longer belongs to you. The minute that you hired one individual, this individual has become your partner. This business does not belong to you. You are carrying it on behalf and in the interest and the benefit of the people around you.
Yeah. Do we have other questions?
Yes, there's one more question in the QA from Mr. Haytham Shahabuddin. How are family governance frameworks in the GCC are adapting to the rise of cross-border asset ownership? Thank you.
I would like to put this question not necessarily in the basket of family governance. Remember, 3 baskets. You need to put each element in its own basket. I would put this element in the 3rd basket, which is the private assets, or if the business is just a fund of some sort, or what is happening in the world today is something, 1, very exciting, 2, very challenging. And the way families are trying to adapt, families are discovering 2 things. 1 is that there is something called taxation. There is nowhere we can hide. Taxation has creeped into our daily life, even in the GCC, and we cannot hide anymore. And 2, there are no secrets and there are no privacy and confidentiality. 20, 30, 40 years ago, people would set up a trust somewhere and just hide their money in that trust and nobody would know about it. Today, this is no longer possible. What we can do is put in place structures that help protect assets so that they don't get dismantled upon the passing of an individual, and that we structure it in such a way so that we can organize management and decision-making processes around these assets. But we can no longer hide anywhere on this planet anymore and pretend that does not exist. I mean, when we were kids, we used to play, you close your eyes and people don't see you anymore. This is not the case anymore. We can no longer close our eyes and pretend that the world does not exist around us. Some people are coping with this easier than others. Those who do not accept to cope are actually being punished, in the sense that they expose their assets and they expose the decision makers within their families to great sanctions, and that's what it is. So yes, it is difficult to come from that old world into a new world and a new way of doing things, but this is where we are, and this is where experts abound today. We need to be careful in choosing the experts we work with. We need to identify our needs in a very clear manner, because, as you will know, everybody has an interest out there. So once we need to understand, we need to define what we want. And once we define what we want, we are able to find the right advisors to help us take us to a safe harbor. I don't know if I answered the question or if I understood the question properly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Waleed. I have one final question, because before we wrap up, some families or board of families might consider, for example, having someone independent, external, like an external shareholder, not from the family, to take part of the decision-making process of the governance structure in the organization, in order to have like an external point of view, a mediation role, an independent role, in order to like balance the power struggle or the power tension that we might have in the board. So is it something that is advisable? It is helpful? And if yes, how can we do it effectively, successfully?
Well, again, I go back to my three baskets. Very often we see families who open up their family councils, for a better word, or family boards to a third party independent individual who comes and helps mediate conversations and facilitate conversations among family members to give an outside view to something. Very often we see this at the level of next gen committees, where they invite people from outside the family to come and help the next generation think through the challenges ahead, and eventually help those next generation steer their decision regarding the future they would like to regarding their future and the future projects they would like to engage in. At the level of the business, it is advisable to open one's board of directors to non-executive directors, if you will, people who do not work in the business, people who are not family members, so that we can get fresh ideas and fresh views. What I like to say is that in family businesses, opening up a board is not an easy task, because we are migrating from sole proprietorships to LLCs, where basically they are extensions of sole proprietorships to joint stock companies. And in a joint stock company, by definition, the investors, the shareholders, abdicate their right to manage and trust a third parties to manage on their behalf. So in family businesses, entrusting a board 100% to outsiders is sometimes difficult, and it is done in stages. At the early stages, family members are sitting on the board. A few years later, we introduce one individual. A few years later, we introduce a second individual, until the family is mature enough to allow this board to incorporate 100% NEDs, people from the outside. The family steps back. The family does not work in the business, or perhaps have a couple of positions within the business, but basically as shareholders, they step back and entrust the management of their monies and their investments and their business to a group of external individuals who can help them manage the show. And this is, for me, the ultimate sign of maturity of a family, that are able to step aside and eventually identify the best person to manage their monies. If you recall, at the beginning of my conversation earlier today, I said, me, the shareholder, me, the investor, have the right to identify the best manager of my money. If I am the best manager, so be it. But if I'm no longer the best manager, and if I reach a stage where I gave everything I had, then it is my duty, if I'd like my money to be managed the right way, to entrust my money to somebody else. The same way we have extra cash, we go to a private banker and we tell this private banker, please manage this money on my behalf. The same thing applies to businesses.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Haytham also thanked you for being, everything was clear to him with the question that you asked.
Thank you.
If we don't have any other questions, so I think we can wrap up our session for today. Thank you everyone for joining us for this really truly insightful session with Mr. Waleed Chinyara. Thank you, Mr. Waleed, for all these deep, profound wisdom on the dynamics of family business governance. I think navigating it from a conflict situation or misalignment situation to co-creating a new legacy or a new success is the ultimate goal for this conversation and this discussion. Thank you for providing us with all these takeaways and insights. Thank you. As we conclude, also, I think what we can remember from this session is governance is a continuous conversation and learning and adaptation in order to maintain and preserve this project that maybe the first generation started, but we have the responsibility towards the people, the employee, the staff, the business, the customers, in order to make the right decision to make it sustainable and to continue its life cycle of growth and development. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Please follow us on LinkedIn and make sure to visit our website if you need any information about our services. We look forward to seeing you in our next webinar and to keep on talking about governance, risk management, compliance, internal audit. Maybe soon we will be posting about our next webinar related to topics of public sector governance and the latest, also sanctions and how it will impact businesses. So stay posted, and we'll keep this event taking place. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
Mr.
listening,
Waleed.
and
Thank
thank
you,
you
Mr.
very much for
Mohammed.
being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.